Alright, so what happened with Bitcoin? We had Bitcoin sitting comfortably at 47,500 before falling in just 2 hourly candles to as low as 45,700. More importantly, I've just seen a pattern in the Bitcoin chart, which is going to be a crucial pattern. It's going to set the direction for where Bitcoin is heading for at least the next few weeks, if not the next few months. So this is a hugely critical juncture for Bitcoin. I'm going to show you the exact chart pattern, the exact levels we need to break to turn bullish on this, and the levels we need to worry about to the downside in order to see lower price targets on Bitcoin. Either way, whatever your strategies are in the market, you need to know these levels so you can prepare accordingly. So make sure you sit back, hit the like button, subscribe, watch till the very end because you're not going to want to miss any of this content. As always, these videos are brought to you by myself. Yes, we have our very own course member lives where if you want to jump onto 3 times weekly live streams where you can ask me questions on your portfolio, we critique your portfolio, you can ask me to look at certain tokens and their chart patterns and do TA, or we can do some tokenomics research, we can talk about psychology and a whole bunch more, then consider heading to ijaz.uk/member, links in description to get yourself set up onto our membership plans. Now, what you can see here is we're sitting here on the hourly chart on Bitcoin. And as you remember, when we got the breakout to the upside, we got rejected from 48,200. Very important level. That was the rejection point, and we started showing some weakness before then falling all the way down for a healthy retest at 44.5. No issues up until this point. This is where we broke out from the big wedge, which we're going to come on to, and we came back down for a retest. Now, after a retest, and again, this is something we spoke about on our course member live streams and in these videos. I mean, yesterday's video, we spoke about this as well. It's very important that you now go create that higher high. It doesn't have to be massively higher, but just get above the initial blue line where you got rejected. That's really important. But when we failed to do that, this is what I was mentioning yesterday in the Bitcoin video, that this showed some weakness, right? We started weakening out. And as soon as you start to weaken out, you can start seeing, you start creating a descending triangle. Now, the problem with a descending triangle is that most of the time these break to the downside, right? Statistically, they're more likely to break to the downside. So this is something we have to watch out for. Now, what you saw happen over the last 24 hours is something very typical. And I want to spend some time explaining this to those who are a little bit less experienced with charting. What you will see here is this massive candle wick. Now, what is this? Well, let's play the scenario back, right? Let's say you're in that hourly candle here. You get this massive green candle breaking through the trend line. A lot of traders, particularly inexperienced traders, are going to place this trade, right? They see this as a breakout. They're looking at the 48,200 mark. Maybe they got a 50x trade, 25x trade, 100x trade, are crazy particularly. Then you're going to start entering your trade. But the market makers know this. The sell walls know this. The experienced bears know this. And all they do is they liquidate you. They move the market at this point, and you can see the market very quickly on the next candlestick ran up. Look at that huge wick. Runs up all the way quickly to 47,500 up here, right? And then the pressure comes in. The quick sell comes in, and you get pushed over the next few hours all the way back down to 45,700. This is classic, guys. This is a classic, what we call a bull trap. Trap the bulls, you get them excited, and you dump the market onto them, throwing them back down. And you'll see this regularly, but I just want to spend a few minutes explaining that so you can start to identify that. And these are the kind of things we talk about in our members' live streams. These are the kind of golden nuggets and tactics we go through, which we don't always get a chance to on these videos because they're just so jam-packed. So, now that that's happened, we're thrown back into our pattern. And the worrying sign is, like I said, unless we break out to the upside and work our way quickly above 48,200, the bearish scenario has an opportunity to still play out. And the reason I'm particularly concerned about this is if we go to higher time zones, what you will end up seeing, if I just get zoomed out here, we have a pattern on top of a pattern. Okay, we have a micro pattern, which is the one we were just looking at, playing out on top of the bigger wedge which we were forming, right? This wedge here, the one which we just broke out from, this one here, something we've been monitoring for a long time. Right? But now at the top of it, where we're trying to create our retest and then just move to the upside, if we create weakness and break back into the wedge, then this wedge is back into play. And this wedge can also break to the downside. And if it breaks to the downside, our technical targets are the pivot points on the bottom of the wedge. And that could take you as low as 33. Now, I'm not saying that's where I think Bitcoin can go, but we need to understand how the dominoes line up and what the consequences could be. So if we, let's take this step by step, before jumping to conclusions, if we lose this wedge, if we come to the bottom and we start breaking to the inside, then we're back into this large wedge, right? So if we lose the descending triangle, we enter back into this large wedge. And if we enter back in this large wedge and we lose all the battles at these key levels, which we'd cover off if we were in there, and we break to the downside, then you start looking for support here, right? Then you start looking for all your levels at these different pivot points. We have to bring those levels into play. And this is what's, something that we need to be aware of. I know the bullish scenario is still in play. If we can break to the upside here and break through 48,200, then my technical price target here of the break of the wedge at 52,800 continues to stay intact. But we have to watch this. This is really critical. And we've only got not long left before we find out what happens here, right? Just a few days before you get to the apex of a triangle like this. I mean, even if it took really long and did this for a little while, fine. Eventually, after a couple of days, we'll get to a conclusion on which way is this breaking. The ideal situation, come here, let the RSI reset, and you head to the upside and you break through 48,200 and you continue this upward trend. But don't be surprised when this happens. Look how steep this move has been from Bitcoin. This is very steep, and now it's dating back to the 13th of March, okay? So from the 13th of March in the build up to the FOMC meeting, you had a slight move. Here, where my cursor is now, is where the FOMC meeting happened. Ever since then, it's been a huge charge to the upside. Perfectly normal to have a little bit of a retracement back before heading to the upside. There's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, if I bring out our EMA ribbon, we are yet to lose our EMA ribbon here on the 4 hourly. So this is another reason to stay bullish right now. We've managed to hold our EMA ribbon. Even within this triangle, which we're looking at, we managed to hold it there, go back up, come back down, hold it. Can we now get the bounce and break this triangle? That's what we want to see. Are we going to see this happen? Boom. Or are we going to see us start to come back down to 45,000 and hover around to the side? This is going to be the key next set of 4 hourly candles we want. Now, what about on the daily candles? Well, if we look on the daily candles, it's pretty much the same story, right? We've got plenty of room here to come and retrace. Remember when we had this move to the upside? What did I say? All I was saying in the videos was we have room to retrace. We can even come as low as 44,000 and still be okay on the daily chart, right? So we can even come all the way back down to the neckline and be okay at 44,500. There's no issue with that. It'll just mean it's another retest because we had a quick retest there. We've gone back up. You have to use the neckline again, which isn't fantastic. It shows a little bit of weakness, but that's normal. Bitcoin's had such a tear to the upside that this is okay if that happens. Okay, so on the daily, we're looking fine. Until we start flipping our daily bearish is when you start closing at 43,000 or below, and then you start entering back into this territory, right? And that's what we're worried about is if we start heading back into this wedge here. We don't want to see that occur. Now, finally, just to kind of wrap things up, what are we looking at in terms of the weekly? Well, the weekly chart is showing you the same thing, right? We know that everything we just explained there comes down to this big wedge which we're forming. And if we break the wedge to the downside, which I showed you on the other charts, then technically, just from a technical perspective, if you lose this wedge to the downside, the one which we already broke to the upside, if we came back in and lost it to the downside, then you have to look at technical targets back at 32 again, and then we're in that scary game again of 29, 32. Can we maintain the higher low? And this time we'll have to close above 32, 33,000, which is the low of this pivot point here. Okay, so not to say that's what's going to happen. We got plenty of downside before we get into those scenarios, but just so you can map them out in your head. So I'm someone who likes clarity. I like to plan out all the different worst case scenarios so that way we can see them clearly in our head. But just focus on the hourly. If we can keep this triangle and we can break this triangle to the upside and go straight through 48,200, then things are going to be good. Right now, the stock markets aren't looking particularly green in the pre-market. They're holding pretty flat. Nothing scaring the market right now, but nothing eager to push the market onwards. It's had a big move to the upside, and I wouldn't be surprised if the market wants a little bit of a cooling off. Fear and Greed Index has notched up a little bit, sitting at 48, and otherwise the market is looking good. No major news articles to touch on really, apart from in other news, Elon Musk taking a 9.2% stake in Twitter. That's got to be probably the most smartest way to avoid being cancelled on any major platform. Maybe I would do the same if I had 80 million Twitter followers. But yeah, things are looking good in the market. So if you appreciate the blend between technicals and fundamentals here on Bitcoin on a slightly earlier than usual video, make sure you hit up the like button. Make sure you subscribe. Don't forget to check out our course member live streams if you'd like my perspective. Ijaz.uk/member. Links in the description below. It's the first link. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to link up the video to the one crypto rule. If you've still not watched that, guys, if you're trading in crypto, not thought about this psychological point, Go and watch this video. You're not going to regret watching this video. And let me know in the comments what you think of the principle. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next video.